Russia's war economy, strong or just surviving? For nearly 4 years, the war in Ukraine has consumed lives, territory, and money. Back in 2022, many believed sanctions would crash Russia's economy quickly, maybe in months. But Russia didn't collapse. It adapted. It kept producing weapons. It kept selling oil. So what's the truth? Is Russia's war economy strong? Or is it simply surviving by draining its future to pay for the present? Russia's wartime economy today sits in a strange space. Not collapsing, but not comfortable either. New research and analysis point to a system that can still fund the war, but only by drawing down earlier buffers, foreign reserves, emergency funds, and heavy borrowing, while redirecting a growing share of national resources into the military. In other words, Russia is still running, but the engine is heating up. To understand why Russia didn't collapse, you have to go back years, before 2022. After 2014, Russia began building what many called a fortress economy. Tight fiscal policy, reduced foreign debt exposure, and the accumulation of reserves. By the time the full-scale war began, Russia had stockpiled large buffers, including foreign exchange reserves and a sovereign wealth fund designed to stabilize the country during shocks. This is why the first wave of sanctions didn't produce the instant crash many expected. But preparation isn't infinite. And the key question now is, how long can Russia keep paying for a long war with money saved for emergencies? Wartime spending has been massive. Russia's military-related industries expanded rapidly, so much that war production has driven most of Russia's manufacturing growth since the invasion. But there's a trade-off. When defense dominates production, civilian industries begin to shrink. Workers, investment capital, and machinery are pulled away from butter and toward guns. It can create growth on paper, while weakening the everyday economy that people rely on. And over time, this crowding out effect becomes structural. It makes future recovery harder, even if the war ends. Russia's sovereign wealth fund was one of the main shock absorbers, but analysis indicates a large portion of its liquid pre-war reserves have been spent during the first years of conflict. As that cushion shrinks, financing shifts. Instead of relying on savings, the government increasingly leans on domestic borrowing. Banks inside Russia buy government bonds because there are fewer external sources available. This is not immediate collapse, but it is a sign that the war is becoming harder to finance the way it was financed before. A major warning light is inflation. With wartime spending pumping demand higher and supply unable to keep up, Russia's economy has shown signs of overheating. Inflation remained high enough that the central bank was forced to raise interest rates sharply, making borrowing expensive and slowing the civilian economy. High inflation eats living standards quietly but relentlessly, and it hits poorer households the hardest. At the same time, growth slows. That combination, high inflation with low growth, is the classic danger zone: stagflation. Then there's labor. Russia's labor market has tightened dramatically. Workforce pressure is driven by multiple forces: mobilization, casualties, immigration, and long-term demographic decline. This creates a brutal competition. Civilian employers versus military recruiters, factories versus the front lines. When labor becomes scarce, wages rise in priority sectors, especially defense-linked industries, and that can temporarily boost incomes. But it also fuels inflation, and it leaves non-priority sectors starved of workers. In poorer regions, the war has created a disturbing economic phenomenon. Huge sign-on bonuses and compensation payouts have injected money into communities where opportunities were limited. For some households, war income has boosted savings and spending, even while human losses mount. This has created a grim incentive structure, where dying in war can appear financially worth it compared to a lifetime of low wages. It can temporarily raise regional deposits and retail activity, but it is not real development. It is stimulus driven by tragedy, and it cannot build a stable future. A major reason Russia remains afloat is its pivot to the east, especially China. China has become Russia's biggest trade partner and a central buyer of Russian oil. Russia now sells large volumes of raw materials, oil, gas, coal, and buys machinery, vehicles, and electronics in return. But the relationship is unequal. Russia depends more on China than China depends on Russia. China buys at discounts, and Russia has fewer alternatives. China has also helped Russia navigate sanctions, whether as a supplier, a facilitator, or manufacturer of sensitive goods that have become harder to source from the West. Russia has swapped one dependency for another.
So why didn't sanctions crash the economy? Because sanctions work best when enforcement is relentless, coordinated, and difficult to circumvent. But Russia was able to reroute trade, lean on energy revenues, and use complex supply chains, including shadow fleets and parallel imports, to keep vital goods moving. Sanctions raised cost and created friction. They made weapons harder and more expensive to produce. But they did not stop the flow of money entirely, especially from energy. The result is an economy that survives, but pays more for everything it does. Here's the clearest picture. Russia's war economy is not collapsing, but it is increasingly unstable. It is surviving by pushing costs into the future, into labor markets, public finances, and household living standards. As buffers shrink, the state shifts the burden. Higher taxes, more borrowing, more strain on civilians. And as guns dominate industry, butter becomes harder to protect. The question is not whether Russia can fight tomorrow. The question is how long it can continue before today's pressure points begin reinforcing each other. In that sense, Russia still has time, but it is increasingly time borrowed from the future. What happens next depends on oil prices, sanctions enforcement, and geopolitics, but also on ordinary people inside Russia, living through inflation, silence, and long uncertainty. If you want a part 2, we can explore the big question nobody can avoid. What happens when war veterans return and war spending slows?